I've just passed 4 million subscribers. We get millions of views for all of our content. The Israeli extremists, as I put it, because I get the most unbelievable threats all the time. These aren't moderate Israelis or reasonable Jewish people. These are people who are hateful and violent. So I've gone from being somebody who apparently, is a Zionist, bootlicker to an anti-Jew, anti-Semite. Well, I can't be both.
So if this was the late 1930s, you'd have Goebbels, Goering, Himmler, maybe even Hitler on every second week?
I would want to have everybody on. Why wouldn't you have them on? Would you not have them on?
But you need to drive traffic to earn the ad revenues.
I don't do this for entertainment, but do I want it to be popular? Absolutely.
Stop lying to yourself, Piers.
Well, one commentator said you were the Jerry Springer of politics.
In this interview, Piers Morgan opens up more honestly than usual. He talks about reaching 4 million subscribers, but also about the dark side that comes with it. Daily threats, insults, and accusations from every direction. One day he's called a Zionist bootlicker. The next he's accused of being anti-Jewish. He points out how ridiculous it is to be labeled both at the same time, and you can feel the frustration in his voice as he explains how impossible it is to satisfy either side.
I just think that at some stage, journalists have to do their job, which is, I believe, get everybody on who has a big mouthpiece, a big following, where people are listening to them, and you let them have their say and you rigorously challenge them. The moment you start making exceptions, I think you're heading down a very perilous road where, well, who do you make exceptions for?
Well, you had Dan Bilzerian on. You interviewed him in November last year. He was brimful of anti-Semitism and even Holocaust denial. And that was promoted with clips on X. I mean, should you really use Holocaust denial to market the show?
Well, it's not that. It's taking a guy who's got millions of followers who is spewing this hateful rhetoric on social media platforms that have absolutely no issue in having people like that, having large platforms to spew their bile. I tried to get an interview with Kanye West recently for the same reason. He spews a lot of anti-Semitic nonsense and some dangerous rhetoric and violent rhetoric, but he has 33 million followers on X that he's spewing this to on a regular basis. Do we just let him do that without anybody holding him to account? So I think that people like you and I actually have to hold these people to account if they're continuing to be given large platforms on social media.
But we're not going to change their minds, and we may just be giving them a platform to spread their poison.
Well, you might, but you might also be being able to put out, in my case, I've just passed 4 million subscribers. We get millions of views for all of our content, and counter the constant stream of hateful bile that they're spewing out by putting out to a very large platform myself, somebody actually rigorously challenging them. I think that is an important public duty, actually, when you have the social media companies just allowing all this to happen with impunity.
But it looks as if, I mean, you're not in the least anti-Semitic, but it looks as if you are selling anti-Semitism by giving these people a platform to build an audience.
Well, I had all this at the start of the war from the other side. I had all the Palestinian extremists saying the complete opposite, because I had the audacity to say that a country had a right and duty to defend its people from a massive terror attack and from a bunch of terrorists who wanted to carry on attacking them. I remember the Hamas spokesman being given plenty of airtime. I tried to get him on myself. By the same argument, you would say, well, why would you platform somebody from Hamas? Because they're wedded to the extinction of Israel.
Indeed.
So, I just think once you start going down that road, it becomes very perilous. Would you not have the Ayatollah of Iran on your show now, Andrew, if you're honest? Or would you have him on and give him a good grilling? I would hope it would be the latter.
I'd give him a good grilling, but I might not do it live, given he may say things about the Holocaust.
I think live would be better.
Are you pre-recorded or live?
Yeah, we're pre-recorded, but we go as live as
you don't much. Edit out the hate speech or the lies.
No, I prefer to challenge them. And like I say, I had months and months and months of the other side, where the Israeli extremists, as I put it, because I get the most unbelievable threats and bile all the time on X.
Sure.
from them now. And these are not moderate people. These aren't moderate Israelis or reasonable Jewish people. These are people who are hateful and violent in their rhetoric and conduct, who do not like anybody deviating from their worldview, that absolutely everything the Israeli government is doing since October the 7th is completely justified. I don't happen to agree with that view, just as I didn't agree with all the Palestinian extremists who threatened me regularly in the first few months of this war by saying the complete opposite. So I've gone from being somebody who apparently, is a Zionist, bootlicker to an anti-Jew, anti-Semite. Well, I can't be both.
So if this was the late 1930s, you'd have Goebbels, Goering, Himmler, maybe even Hitler on every second week?
Well, I would certainly, if we were engaged in a war of this nature, I would want to have everybody on to challenge them about what they're doing.
I said the late 1930s, before the war. You'd have them on?
Well, yeah, I think so. They were doing plenty of interviews at the time. And why wouldn't you have them on? Would you not have them on?
Well, I'd want to think twice about it, given what they might say, and I would like to have some control over any hate speech or lies that
you're talking with the benefit of hindsight, of knowing what they went on to do. And I think that again, is a perilous...
I think after Kristallnacht, we had a pretty good idea
of course,
what
I don't
do.
make any pretense. I just think the moment you start making exceptions, you've got to be very careful what exceptions you make and why you're making them. And like I say, if the spokesman for Hamas was available for an interview to you or me right now, we would both do that interview, I think.
Well, I would say that people who deny the Holocaust, people who urge the death of Jews, people who deny democracy and only speak in violent terms of wiping out a race, they don't deserve to be part of the democratic debate.
Piers argues that real journalism means interviewing everyone, even the people you strongly disagree with. He uses the 1930s analogy to show the absurdity of online outrage. If you ran a talk show back then, of course you'd interview the most controversial figures, not to praise them, but to expose them. And he also addresses the claim that he does it for clicks, saying that conflict naturally attracts viewers, but the goal is transparency, not sensationalism. When he touches on Israel and Gaza, his tone shifts. He admits he's attacked no matter what he says, yet keeps pushing forward because giving people a platform is part of the job.
Would you have Smodrich and Ben-Gvir on your show, the Israeli government ministers who've been talking openly now about ethnic cleansing and getting all the Palestinians out of Gaza and destroying Gaza and everybody in it? I mean,
much as I dislike what they're saying, they are a product of the Israeli election system. So at least once, probably, but after that, probably not.
Yeah, but they're wedded to ethnic cleansing, and they're talking about it very brazenly and openly now. They want this Gaza destroyed and all the Palestinians kicked out. Well, that's war crimes.
Is it the business model that pushes you in this direction, Piers? I mean, you've taken your show off television onto YouTube, where I see it's a great success, but you need to drive traffic to earn the ad revenues. So is there not a danger you invite the biggest blowhards with the most extreme views for what we used to call a good old Barney?
Well, I have plenty of lively debates with all sorts of people, but I think most of the traffic has been driven in the first 3 years by massive interviews with Donald Trump, with Cristiano Ronaldo, with people of that nature. I flew to Kyiv and interviewed President Zelensky. According to Vladimir Putin, Zelensky is a Nazi, which is obviously absurd. But this is where I say you get into difficulty if you start just going down the road of being very selective about who you can interview. And I think you get yourself into a bit of a mess. And
I can see that. And there's difficult lines. I understand that. But is there not a danger of tilting from news and analysis into entertainment? I mean, you said back in April yourself, I'm totally aware of the power of chucking gasoline onto stories. I'm perfectly happy to be at the center of a gasoline-fueled story. But you know that pouring gasoline on something is not always the way to education, information, or edification.
No, but I would also say I learned from the best, Andrew, and you would be one of those who chucking gasoline onto a big story. You were one of the great scoop breakers in Fleet Street history. And no, I don't want this to be about entertainment when it comes to debating a war. But what Piers Morgan Uncensored has become globally is now one of the most watched shows of its kind in the world, and one of the very few that repeatedly puts people together from both sides of all of these stories, whether it's Ukraine, Russia, whether it's Israel, Hamas in Gaza, whether it's Donald Trump, Brexit, whatever the issue may be, whether it's P. Diddy and whether he's guilty or not. I like to bring people together who emphatically disagree with each other, and I like to challenge them all. Most of the debates we do are actually pretty reasonable. Some of them blow up, and when they do, I don't like them all shouting over each other. That doesn't work for an audience, so I try and stop that when it happens. But I've got no problem with passionate, or even angry debate. These are wars we're talking about. A lot of people are dying in these wars. It would be the number of people who have a vested interest do not feel passionate about it. And I see myself as somebody, as a steward of legitimate debate. And if people want to frame that as entertainment, they're not really watching what I'm doing. I don't do this for entertainment, but do I want it to be popular? Absolutely.
One commentator said you were the Jerry Springer of politics.
In the end, Piers sounds tired of the labels but committed to the work, as his message is simple. Real journalism isn't about picking a side. It's about letting every side speak and letting the world judge. Whether people love him or hate him, he's willing to take the heat if it means putting difficult conversations in the spotlight.